Hey guys, tonight we step barefoot into moonlight across tiles warm from a sun-long set and into the hush of a Persian garden hidden from time. You hear it before you see it, a low murmur like breath pulled through earth itself. Somewhere beneath you, water flows uphill not by sorcery, but by quiet, ancient design. The trees sway, not from wind, but from knowing. And the roses, they don't bloom for you. They bloom because it's time. You're about to spend the night in a place that waters itself, cools itself, and somehow calms you without asking for your permission. No alarms, no phone in hand, just fragrant stillness, the occasional chirp of a cricket that sounds a little too philosophical, and a sense that if you tried to rush through this place, the garden might simply vanish. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes trying to maintain a Persian garden like this one, not without a team of philosophical irrigation whisperers and a deep understanding of silence. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is, where you are. I love seeing who else is drifting with us around the world tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive beneath a small arched gate so low that you have to bow your head, a design meant to humble emperors and travelers alike. The walkway beneath your feet is a pattern of turquoise tiles and sun-faded brick polished smooth by centuries of soft sandals. Everything feels arranged not for spectacle but for serenity. It's a garden, yes, but it doesn't perform. It exists. There is no tour guide here, no plaques or audio headsets, only the moonlight pooling softly over stone and the gentle susurration of water trickling beneath the earth. That's the Qanat, the hidden aqueduct that brought life to this place long before cities ever roared. Imagine a hand-dug tunnel sloping ever so gently over miles, bringing melted snow from mountain veins down into the thirsty valleys of Persia. No pumps, no power grid, just gravity, patience, and centuries of human cleverness. The Stoics would have loved it not just for its function, but for its acceptance of natural limits. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly, the Qanat proves it." You trail your fingers over a cool marble ledge, noticing the way condensation clings to the surface like a breath. This garden waters itself because the people who built it understood that effort done right disappears into the background. You're not meant to see the system. You're meant to feel the result. Somewhere nearby, a fig drops from its branch and thuds softly onto dirt. That's the only sound you've heard in 10 minutes. Time doesn't pass here. It unfurls, slowly, like steam rising from warm tea. Under your feet, crushed gravel crunches gently. Even that is intentional. The designers chose gravel not only for drainage, but to slow your pace. Every step reminds you to be here now. Marcus Aurelius might have liked that. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, he said. But he never visited Shiraz. You round a corner and come upon the first pool. It reflects the night sky with such perfect stillness that for a moment you hesitate. Is it water or glass? Then a fish blinks. Yes, fish blink here. Or maybe that was just you. The pool is surrounded by cypress trees tall and thin, like monks in quiet debate. Stoic ones, of course. They don't flaunt their leaves. They don't weep like willows or dance like poplars. They just stand. One breeze arrives soft, cool, dry, and carries the faintest perfume rosewater dust and something citrusy you can't quite name. It smells like memory. You sit by the edge of the water. Somewhere a pipe gurgles. But it's not mechanical. It's the sound of a 1,000-year-old system gently refreshing itself. Not wasteful, not flashy, just quietly perfect. A beetle trundles by your sandal, you consider moving it, then you don't. That's progress. You wonder how many lives have passed through this space. Scholars, emperors, gardeners with calloused hands and heads full of poetry. Historians still argue whether these gardens were more sacred or social. Maybe they were both. Maybe they're proof that the Stoic idea of cosmopolis, a city shared by gods and men, wasn't just a metaphor. Out here the stars feel closer, like gossiping friends leaning in. You lie back your spine to the warm stone, the scent of jasmine twining upward like smoke. You try to worry about something. You fail. The water continues to flow beneath you, silent but alive. You don't know where it comes from. You don't need to. The water beneath you isn't just some clever trick of ancient engineering, it's a philosophy in motion. The Qanat doesn't rage or roar. It doesn't flood or demand attention. It simply flows unseen beneath the surface. Like your breath when you stop trying to control it, like Stoicism itself, you sit up and begin walking again slower now. The garden feels wider in the dark as though night unfolds its corners. You follow a small pebble path that winds like thought itself, never quite straight, never in a hurry. Persian garden paths, unlike their European counterparts, rarely form grids. They meander gently, tracing the natural flow of wind and shade. Like life, they're more suggestion than directive. The air is cool, not cold, and the warmth of the stone walls still radiates beside you. As you brush your fingers along a sculpted wall of clay and mosaic, you notice how every groove seems carved with deliberation. These gardens weren't after perfection, they were after balance. The Stoics would nod in agreement. Nothing too much, nothing too little. Nature assisted, but never dominated. You stop at a sunken plot, a rectangular bed of herbs sunk just below the walkway. That small dip isn't a mistake. It's how the water stays. Gravity becomes a helper, not a hindrance. You crouch beside it and smell basil mint, a whisper of saffron, plants that were once currency, plants that once decided peace treaties. Historians still argue whether Persian garden design influenced the Stoic way of thinking or whether it's the other way around. Did the philosophy create the space or did the space teach the philosophy? Either way, what you're seeing here is a life shaped by limits, not by denial, but by refinement. From the herb bed, a soft laugh emerges, not a human one, but the bubbling chuckle of a clay spout pouring water into a copper bowl. You lean closer and watch it fill tip and empty in a slow rhythm. It's a seesaw of patience, a cycle that mimics your own ups and downs. Like the Stoics taught, what rises must fall, and what falls can rise again. You pass a gardener asleep beneath a fig tree, one hand resting on a pruning hook, the other under his head. His sandals are worn but repaired, his turban is loose but clean. His nap utterly justified. In this place, to rest is not to slack off, it's to recalibrate. The blade near him is sharp, not because of danger, but because he respects the plants enough to prune them cleanly. Like a Stoic trimming his thoughts. Keep your ruling faculty clear, said Epictetus. Maybe he was talking about minds. Maybe he was talking about pomegranate branches. There's a rustling ahead. You pause. Not from fear, there's nothing to fear here, but from curiosity. A peacock steps into view, trailing a tail like a slow comet. It stops, peers at you with a sideways glance, then pecks at something invisible in the dirt. You blink. It's gone. That's what happens in this garden. Things appear just long enough to teach you something, then vanish before you can ask questions. Like that impulse to check your phone. Like most of your anxieties when left alone long enough. You pass under a trellis woven with grapevine. Above you, small fruits hang like lazy punctuation marks in the dark. You reach up, not to pick, just to feel. Cool skin, dusty fuzz. A reminder that sweetness waits quietly on the vine. The garden narrows for a moment, forcing you into a smaller space. It's intentional, so you slow down, so your breath adjusts, so you feel the closeness of walls like the arms of a friend. Then it opens again into a wide court with a still pool in the center. This pool doesn't bubble, it doesn't flow. It just is. Its surface is glass interrupted only by the occasional drifting leaf. You lean over and see your face not as you are in selfies, but as a stranger might see you at rest. Peaceful, lit only by starlight and your own softness. From the corner, a whisper not in words but in wind, slips between carved screens called mashrabiyya, filtering air and light. You wonder if your thoughts would be better if filtered too. Not blocked, not repressed, just softened. A soft fluttering sound like pages turning. But there are no books here, only a fig tree shedding its oldest leaves. Even trees have things they're ready to let go of. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls out once, twice, then falls silent. The echo seems to linger longer than the sound itself. You smile at the thought, maybe the garden has learned how to keep hold of certain things just a little longer. You crouch by a smaller fountain now, this one shaped like a tulip in bloom. Water drips from petal to petal in a slow spiral rhythm. You notice something odd, the fountain isn't centered in its square. It's slightly off to one side. Was that a mistake? Historians still argue whether Persian symmetry was ever truly symmetrical. Some say the asymmetry was deliberate to keep the eye moving the mind from settling. Others think it was about humility, perfection being reserved for the divine. Either way, it keeps you alert even as your eyelids begin to droop. You lie down on a cushioned ledge. The air has shifted slightly cooler now. You pull your shawl or imagination closer. You don't need a story right now, you need a space to be in. And this garden, by existing quietly, gives you just that. As you close your eyes, you think of the Qanat still flowing beneath you. Steady, patient, invisible, like your breath, like the thoughts you no longer chase. You wake, or maybe you never quite slept, to the gentle swish of leaves brushing against each other like silk garments passing in a corridor. The stars have shifted slightly above you, and you sense the garden has moved too, not physically, but in mood. It has deepened, quieted even further. You rise again, following a path that doesn't direct so much as suggest. The gravel crunches a little more beneath your feet now, as though the stones themselves are loosening their grip on the day. You reach a new section hidden behind low cypress hedges and find a gardener already at work despite the hour. He trims a rose bush by candlelight. No lantern, just one stubborn candle. Stubborn. He doesn't look up, but he gestures gently for you to sit. You obey, cross-legged on a smooth bench that still holds the sun's memory. The rose clippings fall to the ground like red commas, pausing the night's sentence. He speaks only once. You prune not because you dislike the branch, but because you love the shape. And then he's quiet again. That's Stoicism in a nutshell, you think. Not cruelty, not suppression, but care, fierce, disciplined care for the overall design. You let go of things not because they're worthless, but because the whole matters more. The scent of the rose bush is almost too much sweet sharp, laced with something peppery. It's the kind of smell that feels like a memory of something you never lived. Maybe it's the very smell that inspired ancient Persian perfumers. Historians still argue whether rose water was first invented for beauty or for mourning. But here it does both. The candle flickers. You notice the gardener's fingers scarred, sure, sun-darkened. This isn't a man who ponders fate and scrolls. This is someone who does and finds philosophy not in books, but in blossoms. Behind you, the sound of running water begins again, soft like someone whispering in another room. You follow it instinctively, leaving the gardener to his gentle sculpting. Now you enter a part of the garden where the trees grow wider, more spread out. Their branches form a canopy that the moon slips through reluctantly. The path beneath you narrows and then splits not into two, but into three, a trident of choice. You pause, amused. Ah yes, the Stoic moment of decision. Do you follow pleasure, duty, or curiosity? Not that it matters here. Each path leads to the same garden. It's not the choice that changes things, it's how you walk it. You take the left path not for any particular reason. It curves slowly to the right anyway, leading you past a low wall covered in faded blue tiles. The tiles show scenes of gardens. Yes, even this garden loves to draw itself. A garden dreaming of itself. That feels familiar. In one panel, a lion lounges beside a water jug. In another, a child holds a fig to the sky like an offering. In yet another, a tree grows upside down, its roots curling into the clouds. You pause. That one's harder to interpret. Historians still argue whether Persian garden mosaics were purely decorative or carried secret messages. Some say they were meditative tools, others blueprints of inner life. Either way, they're here watching you, glowing slightly in the starlight. A breeze picks up. This time it carries sandalwood. The scent seems to reach the back of your throat, warm and grounding. You breathe through your nose, letting the sensation anchor you. The Stoics always reminded us, control what you can, accept what you cannot. You can't control the wind, but you can breathe through it. And the gargampan Garcerdins. You reach a low doorway, an arch barely taller than your shoulder. Again, you bow to enter. Humility here is more than encouraged. It's enforced by architecture. Inside, you find a small alcove open on one side, closed on three, with a tiled bench built into the wall. A stone pitcher rests beside a shallow dish. You pour. The water comes out slower than expected, as if thinking it over. Then it splashes cool, clear, a small sound that fills the space entirely. You rinse your face, not to wake yourself up, but to meet the moment with clean skin. As you press the water to your eyelids, you think of something Seneca once wrote. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Yet here in this garden, even stillness feels like progress. You sit back, letting the coolness dry naturally. The air in the alcove is denser, richer with scent and silence. It's the kind of silence that has weight. You feel it in your chest, not pressure, presence. You glance down at the floor tiles. Their imperfect cracks spider out from the corners, and one tile is chipped in a crescent shape. But instead of marring the space, these flaws feel essential. You think again of the gardener pruning not to perfect, but to preserve. The Stoics believed in the concept of eupatheia, good emotions, not no emotions. That crack in the tile, maybe it's joy held in restraint. You linger here longer than expected. You have no appointments, no alerts. The only urgency is the night itself, moving slowly around you like a second skin. Eventually you stand. The garden calls you onward, but not insistently. More like a friend tapping your shoulder and nodding toward the next room. You exit the alcove and are greeted by a grove of lemon trees. The fruits gleam like small moons. You pluck one. It's still warm from the day. You roll it in your hand, then set it down again. Not everything beautiful must be consumed. The lemon you set down sits still as if it understands your decision. You walk on, and the path beneath you begins to glitter faintly. Not from moisture, though the ground is cool and fragrant, but from tiny chips of glazed tile mixed like forgotten treasure into the soil. Someone long ago must have broken something precious and chosen not to discard it, but to walk on it. The Stoics would have smiled at that. After all, the broken is still part of the whole. Fate leads the willing, Seneca wrote, and drags the unwilling. These tiles aren't being dragged. They're becoming something new. You pass a low wall painted in ochre and lined with clay pots, each one housing a different herb. Lavender, chamomile, fennel, hyssop. The scents shift with your movement like a mood ring made of earth. Each breath feels custom-made for your lungs. Somewhere above, a single fruit falls and lands in the distance with a soft thud. A reminder even ripeness lets go eventually. You reach a new section of the garden where the pathways part ways with gravel and give way to smooth stone. It's slipperier here, but cooler. The architecture tightens around you, higher hedges, closer trees, thicker air. It's a cloister Persian style, not for monks, but for moments. You notice the pattern now. Each section of the garden has a rhythm. Wide, narrow, open and closed, path pool. A lesson in contrast. And in this more intimate space, you hear it again, the slow, deliberate hum of water beneath the stone, like a secret being calmly repeated. A sudden gust sends a shiver through the leaves and a new scent arrives. Not floral, this time earthier. Wet clay dust and the faintest trace of something smoky. You look up. A pavilion appears not far ahead. Its wooden beams have been bleached gray by centuries of sun, and its roof is a lattice of carved wood that casts shadow patterns across the ground like lace. You step beneath it, and it feels like you've walked into the past. Not a grand moment, just a quiet one, carefully preserved. Inside, there's a shallow stone bench and a scroll left open on a wooden tray. You hesitate, then sit. The scroll is in Persian, the ink faded to cinnamon brown. You can't read it, you don't need to, its presence is enough. A light breeze rustles the edge of the paper and it flips to another page. This, you realize, is how wisdom works. It appears when you're ready, not when you demand it. You don't need to understand every word to feel that something important was said here. You reach for a small copper cup nearby and discover it's filled with cool water, lightly scented with cucumber and mint. Not a luxury, a gesture. In Persian gardens, hospitality was embedded in the architecture itself. A bench, a cup of view, that's all you need. Anything more would be excess. You sip slowly, letting the mint open up behind your nose. Your shoulders drop. Your mind, so trained to jump ahead, suddenly gives up. You feel yourself aligning like water, finding the grooves it was meant to run through. A low cooing sound breaks the silence. You look up. A pair of doves has perched in the pavilion's rafters, watching you with the amused solemnity of night custodians. They blink unimpressed and return to their quiet preening. Historians still argue whether birds were deliberately invited into Persian gardens or simply came on their own. Either way, their presence feels written into the design. You leave the pavilion slowly feeling its stillness cling to you like a borrowed shawl. Outside, the light has changed. Not darker, just deeper. The stars shine more urgently now and the moon is rising higher, casting long silver shadows that seem to point the way forward. You walk toward a series of tall cypress trees arranged in a perfectly imperfect line. They don't march, they meander, towering above like silent philosophers. Their trunks are straight, but their growth is never identical. No one has corrected their uniqueness. There's a lesson there. The Stoics believed in oikeiosis, the natural inclination to become fully yourself in harmony with the world. These trees aren't performing, they're simply being what they were made to be. Unapologetically tall, unhurriedly wise. You reach out and touch the bark of one. It's rough, dry, deeply grooved, like time carved its signature into wood. The scent is resinous, almost bitter, a smell that says, I've stood here through storms and I still stand. You sit on a low stone wall near their base legs, folded spine straight without trying. The garden doesn't demand posture, it invites it. Somewhere nearby, a fig tree lets out a creak like it's stretching. Or maybe it's laughing. Then you hear it again, that faint rhythmic dripping. You look to your right and see a chain of polished stones hanging vertically. Water slides down them in perfect beads, one after another. It's called a water chain, an ancient alternative to a gutter. But here it feels like a necklace worn by the garden itself. Each drop lands on a copper plate with a satisfying plink, then flows into a basin lined with lily pads. The frogs here are asleep or perhaps meditating. Either way, they make no noise. You lean back and close your eyes. The water continues. The trees breathe. And somewhere deep beneath your seat, the qanat hums on. Somewhere above you, a bat flutters past, silent as spilled ink. It weaves through the branches without touching a single leaf. You wonder, how does it not crash? Does it feel the air the way you feel thoughts? Soft resistance. The Stoics talked often about harmony with nature, not in a poetic save the whales kind of way, but in the gritty, do you even know what's alive around you kind of way. You suspect that bat is more stoic than most philosophers. You shift your weight on the stone wall, which hums faintly from the water trickling nearby. Not a loud sound, just enough to remind you something is always flowing, just not always where you can see it. You glance down and notice a single date resting near your foot. Not from a tree above, but possibly placed there. You pick it up, it's soft, slightly sticky, sweet-smelling. Do you eat it? You don't know if it's meant for you. You place it on the wall beside you. Respect, not fear. That's the Stoic way. Up ahead, a narrow corridor of cypress opens into a wider courtyard, the heart of the garden perhaps. It's symmetrical in a way that feels almost smug. 4 water channels branch outward from a central fountain, creating a quadrangle known as a chahar bagh, the garden of 4 parts. You step closer. Each path of water reflects a different slice of sky, north, south, east, west. It's like walking through a compass made of liquid. You pause at the center. Water gurgles gently upward from a stone spout shaped like a lotus. It doesn't splash, it exhales. The whole setup whispers restraint. The Chahar Bagh is more than design. It's philosophy laid flat. A square of balance, 4 directions, 1 source. You're standing in the middle of the garden's breath. Zeno of Citium, the original Stoic, believed that virtue lies in living according to nature. But Persian garden makers went further. They designed nature to reflect virtue. This isn't a garden about control. It's a garden about alignment, not conquering chaos, but framing it. Historians still argue whether the quadrants represent the 4 elements, the 4 seasons, or simply 4 moods. The truth is likely all of them and none. That's the thing about symbols, they work even when misunderstood. You notice how the water flows quietly over raised edges, just high enough to create sound, not so high as to create waste. There's no drama here, just calibration. The entire system is gravity-fed, meaning every drop that dances in the moonlight earned its journey down a mountain slope. You circle the fountain once slowly. The stone is cool beneath your feet, the moon reflected in every quadrant. You are both inside and outside the design part of it and observing it. Like your thoughts, really. You head east through a narrow arch into another secluded patch. Here, the garden shifts tone. It's more fragrant, less symmetrical. The plants reach into the walkway like curious children. A rogue jasmine vine caresses your shoulder. You don't mind. A bench sits in the middle of a shallow curve. You take it. This spot feels different, less curated, more wild. You breathe deep. The jasmine hits first, but then comes saffron, then crushed thyme, then something faintly metallic, wet stone. Night itself. The Stoics spoke often of apatheia, not apathy, but tranquility. A state where you are no longer tossed about by cravings or fear. This corner of the garden, it's apatheia in plant form. You notice a cat. It appears suddenly, as cats do, trotting softly along the edge of a hedgetail held like a question mark. It doesn't acknowledge you. Why would it? It's clearly the senior guest here, you the visitor. It pauses at the bench's end, stretches and settles. You are now sharing your space. This is your new teacher. The cat begins to clean itself, slow and methodical. A ritual not for performance, but peace. You get the feeling this is what Stoic meditation might look like if done in fur. No chanting, just maintenance. The air grows slightly cooler, not cold, just another shift. You adjust your posture, stretch. Your legs feel the blood return to your toes. The sound of the central fountain is distant now. Out here, water doesn't talk, it listens. A few dried leaves skitter across the ground. One brushes your ankle and you flinch, then laugh at yourself. A reminder, even in peace, the body startles. That's okay. Seneca would say, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. And you. Right now, you crave nothing. You tilt your head back and look up. The stars here are bolder. No light pollution, no car alarms. Just the cosmos doing its quiet performance. You imagine ancient philosophers laying on stones like this, trading metaphors, while fig leaves flutter down around them. A light breeze rustles the jasmine again. Its scent grows sweeter, like the plant is whispering thank you for sitting still. You rise slowly, even movement now feels optional. You begin to walk again, each step echoing softly off nearby stone walls. The garden begins to close in again gently, like a curtain drawing at the end of a long, soft play. And beneath it all, that steady hum of Kanat water, ancient breath, night's heartbeat. The path ahead curves like a question asked gently, not urgently, just enough to stir your curiosity. You follow not to reach a destination, but because the garden is inviting you to. Around the bend, you find a small orchard, not a grand display of abundance, but a modest assembly of pomegranate, quince, and almond trees. Their trunks twist in slow spirals like they've grown by negotiating with the wind. The moonlight catches the curves in their bark, and for a moment, they look like dancers frozen mid-bough. You approach the nearest tree, a pomegranate, its fruits heavy and round like jeweled bells. You touch one. The skin is leathery, cool, slightly dimpled. You don't pick it. The Stoics would approve. Restraint is not about denial, it's about harmony. You understand now that this garden doesn't reward the plucker. It rewards the observer. A small plaque lies half buried in the dirt beneath the tree, not in English, not even fully in Persian. Just a carved symbol, a circle inside a square. Historians still argue what it means. Some say it's an ancient symbol of the self, or a diagram of the garden's original design. Others suggest it's just a mason's mark. But here, under the soft leaves and the far-off trickle of unseen water, it feels like a map of the mind. You sit beneath the tree and the dirt is surprisingly soft. Not loose, just giving, like it wants you there. You lean back and look upward. The branches cross above you like latticework framing constellations you haven't named. A single fruit dangles just above your head. You do nothing. That is your action. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that virtue alone is sufficient for happiness. And sitting here saying nothing, wanting nothing, you believe it. Not because he said so, but because the garden confirms it. A breeze stirs the quince tree nearby, and a fruit drops, not on you, not near you. Just far enough away to remind you you're not the center of anything. You smile. That's comforting. A sound begins behind you, not water this time, but footsteps. Slow, measured, sandaled. You turn but see no one. Still, you hear the steps heel-toe gravel shift. Maybe it's a gardener. Maybe it's no one. This is the kind of place where presence doesn't always require a body. You rise and follow the sound not with urgency, but with curiosity softened by the hour. It leads you through an arched passage lined with date palms. The fronds whisper above like gossiping elders. You duck slightly, not to avoid hitting your head, but out of respect. At the end of the passage is a wall plain and high. At its center, a single wooden door half open. You pause. No signs, no warnings, just invitation. You step through, and suddenly the garden is different. This space feels older somehow. Not in age, but in mood. The trees are taller, the ground harder. You smell clay iron and rosewood. The air is drier here. The path beneath you is smoother, more polished. You realize this is where water once ran, but now rests. You're in the retired heart of the Qanat. The channel here is dry, but only on the surface. If you listen closely, you still hear the deep echo of water far below. It's just moved deeper. You sit on a stone ledge beside the dry channel. It's warm, like it held sunlight long after sunset. A faded mosaic beside you shows a lion drinking from a fountain, its eyes closed, its mane curling like waves. Beneath it, an inscription, "He who controls himself drinks deepest." You laugh under your breath. That's good, you'll keep that one. The Stoics were obsessed with self-mastery, but not in the way modern life misunderstands it. It's not about suppressing emotion or marching through pain. It's about clarity, about knowing what's yours to carry and putting down what isn't. A breeze kicks dust across the old channel. It dances for a moment, then settles, just like thought. You lie back on the ledge, arms behind your head. Above you, the stars have rearranged themselves again. You see new patterns now. The sky feels closer. The silence here is not empty. It's generous. It gives you room. It makes space for the thoughts you didn't know were waiting. You think of the gardener with the candle, the cat by the bench, the fountain that exhales, and suddenly this space doesn't feel old. It feels full, not abandoned, absorbed. Somewhere far off you hear water again, not near, but not far, just beneath everything. It reminds you stillness doesn't mean nothing is happening. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage, but tonight even to sit still feels like an act of wisdom." You rise slowly, brushing dust from your palms. The wall behind the ledge has a carved alcove where someone left a small, dried bouquet lavender rosemary and what might be orange peel. No note, no explanation, just a gesture. You smell it, faint but kind. You place it back exactly where it was. No one needs to know you were here. The garden already does. You leave the dried bouquet behind like a secret, letting it rest in its little shadowed nook, and continue forward through a winding path that narrows and then opens as if the garden is breathing with you. The moment you step into the next space, you hear something unexpected: laughter. Not loud or sharp, soft and musical, the sound of someone delighted by something very small. You round a hedge and see no one, just a shallow basin filled with smooth pebbles. But then you notice every few seconds a single drop falls from a spout high above, lands on one particular stone and makes it wobble just slightly as if giggling. Ah, that's your laughter source. You kneel beside the basin. There's no grand fountain here, no glittering reflection, just motion repeated and patient. The drop, the wobble, the silence. The drop again. You watch it fall 10-20 times and realize this is the garden's version of a punchline. Not explosive, not attention-seeking, just they're waiting. The Stoics didn't often talk about humor directly, but their writings are laced with irony and dry wit. Epictetus, for one, might have laughed at a stone being tickled by water for eternity. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he said, and this pebble completely unbothered. You stand and begin walking again, guided now not by path or scent, but by sound. Off to your left, you hear a rhythmic clink, not metal, but something softer, like ceramic against clay. You follow and soon arrive at a small alcove filled with hanging lanterns, each one gently swaying from a vine-laced beam above. They aren't lit with flame, each has a single polished mirror inside, catching moonlight and scattering it in threads. This is no grand lighting system. It's humble, minimal, and entirely effective. You notice a table below the lanterns set low to the ground with cushions scattered around it. No one is there, but the table is set. Small bowls of dried fruit, apricots, pistachios, figs sit untouched. A carafe of what smells like rosewater waits patiently in the middle. There are 5 places set and only you here. You sit at one, not because you're hungry, but because it feels wrong not to accept the invitation. You take a fig soft and leathery and break it open. Its seeds gleam like tiny stars. You eat half. The rest you leave. Hospitality, after all, is a two-way street. The air here is denser with story. You can feel it in your skin. This space remembers people. Philosophers, Gardeners, poets perhaps, lovers likely, maybe even a few grumps who learned despite themselves to listen. Historians still argue whether Persian gardens were truly democratic spaces or reserved for the elite. But when you sit at a table like this set for no one and everyone, you understand that access isn't always about class. Sometimes it's about willingness to slow down. You lie back on the cushions just for a moment. The sky through the lanterns looks like a poem in motion. The vines crisscross the moonlight into fractured verses. The wind begins to thread itself into a new rhythm, gentler, slower, more circular than before. Something shifts beside you. You turn your head and find quite naturally a book. Or maybe not a book, more like a bundle of folded pages bound with ribbon. You don't recognize the language. The script is flowing like vines. You flip gently through a few pages. The ink is faded, the corners curled, but the pages carry the faint scent of saffron and old cedar. You don't try to read, you just hold it. The feeling of being trusted with something fragile sinks into your chest. You don't need to know what it says enough just by existing. You set it down carefully, and as you do, you notice something else on the table. A cracked ceramic plate mended with gold. Kintsugi, though, that's a Japanese tradition. Here it's just care. A reminder that what is repaired can be more beautiful than what was whole. The Stoics would have nodded at that. They never preached invincibility, they taught endurance. Amor fati, love of fate, even if it drops the plate. A breeze rustles the vines above. The lanterns sway again, sending arcs of light across the pillows, your hands, your knees. You exhale slowly, the garden listens. You leave the table quietly, stepping around it with reverence. You don't disturb anything. You don't need to. Back on the path, the sound of flowing water returns. Not loud, not even urgent, but present. You follow it toward a low arch, and as you approach, you spot a carving on the wall beside it. A sun, a crescent moon, and a single drop of water between them. Interpret it however you like. That's the garden's gift. You step beneath the arch and enter another chambered space. The air changes. Cooler somehow. More inward. And then in the corner, you spot something small and unexpected, a child's wooden toy half buried in the soil. A camel, missing one leg but still standing. You smile. Maybe the garden teaches resilience through toys too. The camel stares back at you, wooden and steadfast, one-legged and unbothered. You crouch beside it, brushing a bit of dirt from its back. Its face is painted with the faintest suggestion of a smile, lopsided, worn, but determined to persist. You run your thumb over the cracked wood, and for a second, you're not in a garden, you're in someone's memory. It's impossible to say who left it, a child of a gardener maybe, a prince sneaking away from lessons, or perhaps no one left it at all. Perhaps the garden itself made it from broken branches and the will to endure. Whatever the story, it's still here. That means something. You stand slowly, and as you do, your hand grazes the trunk of a tree beside the toy, a broad, knotty plane tree with bark that peels like old parchment. The tree doesn't flinch. It has stood here for generations, watching philosophers age into shadows. It doesn't speak, but it holds space for you like an old friend who knows when to stay quiet. You walk on past more trees, now olive, apricot, plum. The air smells like stone fruit and dust. Not ripe, but remembered. Like a scent caught in fabric long after the wearer has gone. The path beneath you widens, then narrows again, and soon you're at another basin, this one deeper, darker, filled with water so still, it could be mistaken for marble. You lean over it expecting to see yourself again. But you don't. Instead, you see the stars reflected more clearly than they appeared in the sky above. There's Orion's belt, and the curve of the Milky Way, and yes, that one star that never quite stays still. A satellite, perhaps? Or something else. The water shifts slightly, not from wind but from vibration. You hear it now, a low humming note like a single flute being played at a distance. Not a melody, just a tone. It seems to come from beneath the ground. You lie down beside the basin, cheek resting on warm stone. The vibration is stronger here, subtle but certain. It's the Kanat again reminding you that while the surface may rest, the source always flows. Stoic discipline is often misunderstood. It's not about being unfeeling, it's about remaining rooted when the winds of chaos blow. And here, with your heartbeat beginning to mirror the pulse of ancient water, you understand that discipline is not rigidity, it's rhythm. You close your eyes for a moment, just one. When you open them again, you notice something odd just across the basin, half concealed by shadow. is a structure you hadn't seen before. It's low, almost sunken into the ground with a domed roof and an arched entrance. There's no door, only hanging vines like curtains. You walk toward it slowly as though disturbing it might wake the entire garden. As you step inside, the temperature drops slightly, not cold, just hushed. Inside, the walls are covered in tiles. Not the floral blues and golds you've seen elsewhere, but soft, muted greens and grays. The light filtering through the vine curtain dapples the floor like lily pads. And at the very center of the room, a small stone bench curved into a perfect half moon. You sit. There is no sound here. Even the water seems to pause before entering the space. You take a breath, and the breath echoes slightly, just enough to remind you that you are in fact still physical, still here. The Stoics often spoke of the inner citadel, the place within that cannot be breached by the outer world. You realize now that this room is that metaphor made stone. It's not where you hide, it's where you return. You run your fingers across the tiles beside you. They're cool, smooth, but some have faint cracks. In one, someone etched something long ago. Just 3 lines, not word scratches. They could mean anything. They could mean nothing. Historians still argue whether such marks were messages or merely accidents of time. But you don't need a clear answer. That, too, is Stoic accepting the unknown without folding under it. A soft wind stirs the vines. Light shifts. A few leaves fall inside, landing near your feet. You don't move them. They belong here now. You lie down on the bench. It's firm, curved perfectly to your spine. Your gaze finds a small circle of sky above, visible through the roof's center, just one star visible in that slice. You watch it. Somewhere below the Connaught flows, somewhere above the sky turns. In this moment, you are neither above nor below. You are simply aligned. And there it is again, the sound of footsteps. Soft, deliberate, near the entrance. You look, but no one is there, just the curtain of vines moving gently. Maybe someone passed by, maybe not. It doesn't matter. You close your eyes again. The garden, always generous, is offering you one more lesson. Stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the mastery of it. You rise from the stone bench slowly, like steam lifting from tea. The room hasn't changed, but the light has. It's grown softer, cooler, as if the garden has exhaled. One last look through the vine-curtained doorway, and you step out into the open again. The stars overhead seem to have rearranged themselves while you rested, just slightly, but enough to remind you that time does in fact pass, even in here. You find yourself back on the winding path, though you don't recall retracing your steps. The air is warmer again, scented with jasmine, now so thick it's almost touchable. The breeze carries it gently past your ears like a whisper you can't quite catch. You follow the scent. Around a bend, the garden opens into a smaller, more intimate courtyard nestled behind low stone walls. At its center sits a single fountain. No grand cascade here, just a round stone basin with a quiet upward trickle that barely clears a whisper. It fills, overflows, and recirculates. Nothing wasted, nothing loud. You approach and sit cross-legged at its edge. In front of you, nestled against the courtyard wall, stands a marble plaque, not commanding attention, just waiting patiently to be seen. The inscription is simple: speak only when your words are more still than silence. You smile. The Stoics would have stolen that line. Or maybe they did. You look into the fountain, watching the water's tiny ripples extend outward, collide and fade. A pattern of conflict then, harmony, like thoughts, like life. Then something shifts. Out of the shadows steps a girl, perhaps 10, perhaps timeless. She walks barefoot, trailing a basket behind her filled with trimmed stems, petals, bits of vine. Her tunic is simple, her hands stained green. She doesn't look startled to see you. If anything, she looks like she expected you. She walks past without a word, kneels beside the basin, and gently dips one of the flower stems into the water. Not to wash it, just to cool it. She lays it beside her, plucks another. You watch in silence. This is not performance, this is practice. After a while, without looking up, she says softly, "The garden sleeps best when no one rushes." You nod, unsure whether you're meant to respond. You don't. She continues her work, arranging the stems by length, color, perhaps mood. You notice some are broken. She doesn't discard them, she places them with the others. Useful, still beautiful. You remember a line from Marcus Aurelius: what stands in the way becomes the way. Maybe that applies to broken stems too. The girl finishes, lifts the basket, and rises. Her eyes meet yours briefly, calmly. Then she walks away, her path marked only by the gentle brushing of her basket across the stone. Historians still argue whether gardens like these were maintained by children, by monks, or by entire families. But perhaps the real answer is simpler: they're tended by those who listen. You linger at the fountain. Its gentle rhythm has synced with your own. Inhale as the water rises. Exhale as it falls. After a while, you rise again, the stone warm beneath your palms. You walk through a narrow passage carved between two tall hedges, their tips gently bowing toward each other as if exchanging secrets. On the other side, a garden room you hadn't noticed before. This one is filled entirely with scent. No fountain, no stone, just beds of night-blooming flowers, jasmine, tuberose, moonflowers spilling over each other like silk scarves in slow motion. The fragrance is dense but not overwhelming. It feels intentional. You step in and it's like walking through a perfume. The flowers brush against your clothes. You catch layers first, sweet, then sharp, then something earthy beneath it all. Your skin tingles slightly as if your body is recognizing the alchemy of it all. You sit on a small stool tucked into the foliage. It's been used before its legs worn, its paint faded. You wonder who else sat here. A tired gardener, a wandering thinker, someone who needed a break from needing. You breathe in deeply. The Stoics taught that nothing external should disturb your peace. Not praise, not blame, not even perfume. But what if scent doesn't disturb it, invites? You look up. The stars are barely visible now, hidden behind a slow-moving veil of garden mist. It curls around the plants like silk. Your eyelashes catch a few drops. You don't brush them away. You close your eyes. The fragrance shifts again. Now it's mostly tuberose, thick, creamy, almost too much. It reminds you of a memory you never made. Perhaps lying beside someone on a summer night or opening a drawer filled with letters tied in velvet. You open your eyes again and see a small plaque buried under a blooming bush. Breathe here. The world will wait. You obey. You remain seated for longer than you can track, counting breaths, not seconds. Listening, not solving. Eventually you stand again, not because it's time, but because your body tells you it's ready. You exit the garden room not through the path you entered, but through a break in the hedge that seems to have opened just for you. It leads back to gravel, to moonlight, to stillness. You pause, looking back one last time. The flowers have already returned to their own rhythm. They didn't bloom for you. They bloomed because that's what they do. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, but because anything faster would feel disrespectful. The gravel shifts underfoot like a soft reminder that you're here, alive, grounded, part of the pattern. Ahead, a structure emerges from the shadow. It's not a palace or a temple. It's something quieter. A small stone building, rectangular with a wide flat roof and walls, the color of old bone. At first it looks purely functional, but as you draw closer you notice something curious: windows, not for light but for shadow. They are cut high into the walls, each shaped differently, a circle, a triangle, a teardrop. And as the moon passes above, the light they cast inside is ever-changing, always filtered, always partial. This isn't a place for clarity, it's a place for contemplation. You step inside, the air shifts. Cooler, yes, but also more thoughtful. Like walking into someone's unspoken idea. The interior is bare. No furniture, no cushions, no gold, just a floor of pressed earth walls of rough stone and a single tree growing through the center, its trunk passing clean through. A cut in the roof, its branches rustling against the night. The tree is a mulberry, gnarled, half hollow, but alive. At its base lies a ring of flat stones worn smooth by sitting. You join them. This, you realize, is not a room. It's a sundial for the soul. The shadows move slowly across the floor like thoughts finding shape. As the moonlight rotates through the cutouts, it casts new silhouettes with each passing minute. The Stoics would have loved this place. In fact, you suspect they would have built it. Zeno taught that external things, wealth, pleasure, even suffering, are indifferent. Only virtue matters, and this place seems to echo that. It offers you nothing, and in doing so, it gives you everything. You run your hand over one of the wall stones. It's chipped cool, slightly powdery. A line has been carved there so faint you almost miss it. If you wish to be wise, start by watching the wind. You chuckle quietly, the kind of advice that seems poetic until you realize it's just practical. The wind doesn't lie, it doesn't brag, it doesn't wait, and it changes everything without ever needing permission. A gust moves through the cut roof and rustles the tree above you. A few mulberries drop. One lands near your foot with a soft plop. You pick it up. It's ripe. It stains your thumb dark red. You eat it. Sweet, sharp, gone in seconds. You think again of the idea of ataraxia, stoic tranquility. Not the absence of feeling, but the absence of disturbance. And sitting here stained thumb and all you feel what they meant. You aren't fighting anything, you're just present. Somewhere outside a nightingale begins to sing. Not a melody, more like a warbled soliloquy. You tilt your head trying to catch the pattern. It's irregular, like the bird is debating with itself. You imagine two birds in the garden having a philosophical disagreement, but what if fate is flexible? And what if your worm was just luck? But I flew, I chose. Did you well? Maybe. Historians still argue whether nightingales in Persian gardens were trained to sing specific ways or if their presence was simply a welcome accident. Some say poets mimicked them. Others say poets envied them. You rise from the stone ring and walk outside again. The path curves gently down now toward what looks like a small canal fed from an unseen spring. The water moves so slowly it seems frozen, but you can see the occasional ripple stirred by nothing you can name. You follow its edge. Every so often, a small channel branches from the main one leading water to flower beds, trees, even simple patches of dry ground. The layout is elegant, not a drop wasted, not a flow forced. This is a place that believes in letting things go where they're needed, not where they're seen. You crouch beside one of the smaller branches and dip your fingers in. It's cool, not biting, just true. The canal walls are lined with old bricks, some crumbling. One brick has a deep thumbprint in it, as though someone long ago left their mark by accident or intention. You place your thumb over it, it fits. You sit there for a while, feet beside the water spine, straight against the warm brick. You don't try to think. You don't try to not think, you just are. Above, the moon climbs toward its peak. The wind grows softer, brushing the tops of the cypress trees like a lullaby played backwards. You realize you've stopped checking for time, or purpose, or whether this night has a destination. It doesn't, that's the point. One final breeze carries a whisper of saffron and dust across the water's surface. It smells like a memory that hasn't happened yet. You breathe it in and let it go. The scent lingers in your chest as you rise again, slow and deliberate, like someone placing a bookmark in a page they're not quite ready to finish. You leave the canal behind and rejoin the garden's winding path, now edged with tall cypress trees that don't wave or rustle. They simply stand. There's something different about them. They grow in precise pairs, spaced evenly along the trail. Not symmetrical exactly, but balanced. Each one seems to be watching the one across from it, as if in long conversation. Silent, stoic. Cypress trees, you remember, are often seen in cemeteries, not as symbols of death, but of endurance. They grow straight, unbending. They don't sprawl, they don't bloom. They just rise. You reach out and touch one. Its bark is rough but not harsh. Dry but warm. There's strength here, aged quiet and unimpressed by anything flashy. It reminds you of something Epictetus said: if you wish to be invincible, then do not enter into combat where victory is not in your control. These trees, they've never entered battle. They've simply survived. And still they cast shade where it's needed. You sit at the base of one, your back leaning against it. The roots are strong beneath the soil, invisible but felt. The ground here is hard-packed, dry but not lifeless. Even the weeds look purposeful. You glance up. The branches climb narrow, reaching endlessly skyward. No bends, no wasted energy, just upward. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere in the distance, the water still flows. Somewhere closer, a cricket begins its rhythmic song, a slow chirrup, followed by silence, then another chirrup. The garden has no clocks. This is how it marks time. A few pebbles shift under your thigh. You reach down and feel them smooth, rounded, still warm from the sun's memory. You let them rest in your palm. One by one, you gently place them in a line beside you. Not for a game, just to feel the weight of placing things where they belong. Historians still argue whether cypress trees were planted for shade, for symbolism, or for sound, since their tight branches hum slightly in the wind. Some believe they were selected to teach discipline to those who pass between them. You wonder if the trees are amused by that, or if they've simply accepted that humans need meaning to settle their minds. You rise again, the pebbles left in their careful row. Ahead, the path begins to open, slightly revealing a long, reflecting pool, narrow, clean, still as glass. It stretches ahead, flanked by low hedges and lanterns that have not been lit. They don't need to be. The moon handles that, now painting silver ribbons across the water's surface. You walk beside the pool. Each step matches your breath. The symmetry here isn't forced, it feels earned. At the pool's edge, you pause and look down. Your reflection stares back, not sharp, but softened by the ripple of night. You don't look exactly like yourself. You look patient. The Stoics believed in a practice called prosoche attention. Not distraction, not obsession, just noticing. You notice now the way your shoulders have dropped, the way your jaw has unclenched, the way your thoughts no longer dart but stroll. A breeze brushes across the pool and distorts your reflection, then smooths it again. You smile. It's okay. 너무 보이지. You reach the end of the reflecting pool and find a bench made of white stone tucked under an arched trellis wrapped with flowering vines. Moonlight passes through the leaves in shards and dapples. You sit. The vines above bloom quietly, some kind of moonflower perhaps. They open only at night, exhaling fragrance not for bees, not for birds, but for those who pass in silence. You inhale. It's floral, yes, but with a hint of something sharper green, almost medicinal. A reminder that beauty often comes with boundaries. The Stoics understood this. They didn't seek only what pleased them. They embraced the whole. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, accept everything which happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to the health of the universe. You let the scent settle behind your nose and your throat down to your chest. And then it happens. A single blossom falls. Not near you, not dramatically, just a gentle surrender from a high vine caught it by gravity and let go by time. It lands on the edge of the bench beside you. You do not touch it. You do not need to. You sit with it. A few steps away, a small lizard scampers across the path, pauses under the bench's shadow, then disappears again. Even the wildlife here moves with intention. You hear another sound now, different from water, from wind. A soft brushing, like cloth on stone. You glance over. A woman sweeps the walkway slowly with a bundle of twigs, not because it needs cleaning, but because it's part of the rhythm. She sees you, nods once, and moves on. The broom makes a sound like distant applause, not loud, just enough to mark a moment. The garden is awake even while it sleeps. You remain still for a long time. The moonflower beside you closes slightly, its brief window of bloom drawing to a close. You know now this moment is not rare. It is constant. We just rarely arrive for it. The wind changes direction. It brings with it the scent of cypress rose and whatever memory you needed tonight. You stand from the stone bench, careful not to disturb the fallen moonflower, and stretch gently. Your body has become part of the rhythm here. Limbs looser, breath deeper, like the garden has tuned you like a string on a forgotten instrument. Not to play a song, just to resonate. The path ahead narrows again, curling inward like a spiral of thought. You follow, brushing fingertips against the hedges that lean toward the center. It leads you to a circular space, enclosed and intimate. At its center, a small fountain, not water this time, but light. A polished brass disc embedded in the stone reflects the moon above perfectly. You look down and see a second sky, one where nothing is rushed, one where stars never blink. You sit at the disc's edge. The stone beneath you is cool and smooth, shaped like the inside of a bowl, gentle cradling. You realize you're inside the softest echo chamber in the garden. Your breath sounds round here, full. And just beyond the circle in the shadows, the water begins again. A gentle channel, barely an inch wide, cuts across the path like a quiet sentence. The flow is barely audible, more suggestion than sound. It loops around the circle like punctuation. Nothing wasted, every drop accounted for. The Stoics believe that nature is ordered even if we don't always understand the order. And here you feel that order, not imposed but revealed. You didn't make this garden, you met it, and in doing so met yourself. You recline against the smooth slope and your eyes drift upward. The moon, perfectly framed above you, looks impossibly still. Like it's resting too. Something flickers beside you. You turn your head slightly and see the glint of tiny glass beads strung across a small olive branch, laid carefully along the stone, a forgotten decoration, a gift. It doesn't matter. You let it stay where it is. The garden knows what to do with offerings. You close your eyes for a moment and think this is what rest is supposed to feel like. Not absence, not escape, just enoughness. From a nearby bush, a cricket begins to chirp again, but this time it sounds like a metronome, steady, unchanging, keeping time for no one in particular. And somewhere in the garden, someone, maybe the woman with the twig broom, sings quietly. No words, just a tone, almost like the Kanat itself decided to hum. You walk again the circle behind you, the moon ahead. The path widens into a tiled corridor, its floor decorated with geometric shapes in deep blues and soft greens. The tiles guide your feet not just forward but inward. This is a path for reflection, not arrival. Halfway down the corridor, you see something strange, a small pedestal barely knee-height. On it sits a bowl carved from alabaster, inside water, and floating in the water, a single pomegranate seed. You pause. It's Tursum. Becomes some once he down not split, not spoiled, just there. You kneel, staring into the bowl. The surface reflects your face, but distorted by the seed's soft ripple. You look odd, but calm. The Stoics didn't avoid self-reflection, they required it. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You don't move the seed, but its presence stirs something in you, a question that doesn't need an answer. That's enough. You rise and continue down the corridor until you reach its end, a wooden door, aged but unbroken. No handle, just a small notch near the base. You push gently, it swings inward on silent hinges. Inside is a room like a shell-rounded walls, one small open skylight, and a shallow reflecting pool in the center. On each wall, a poem carved in 4 languages, Persian, Greek, Arabic, and silence. That last one, no inscription, just a smooth wall, waiting. You approach it and touch the stone. It's warm from within, not without. The silence says everything. You sit by the pool. The water doesn't reflect the sky here, it reflects the room. Yourself. Everything nearby. You see the shadow of your shoulders soften. You see the roundness of your face. You see a garden's memory held gently in stone and stillness. A single droplet falls from above into the pool. You don't know where it came from. Its ripples reach the edges, they return, they reach again. Stoicism, you realize, isn't just a philosophy, it's a return, a practice, a circle. You lie down beside the pool and let your hand drift into the water. It's warm now, almost body temperature, as if the pool has listened long enough to learn you. The wind hushes, the water hums, the world for now asks nothing. You wake not startled, not groggy, just returned. The air is still the same temperature as your skin. You're not sure how long you've been lying by the reflecting pool, and it doesn't matter. Time here isn't something to measure. It's something to inhale. You sit up slowly, water sliding from your fingertips. The room hasn't changed, but the silence has deepened. Not in volume, but in texture, like velvet drawn over thought. You rise, stretch gently, and walk back through the wooden door, which swings open with no resistance. Back onto the tiled path, back into the night. The stars above have moved again slightly. They keep their rhythm without apology. You admire that. You follow a new trail now, one narrower than the others. It leads past a row of fig trees whose branches arch over the path like guardians of dreams. Their leaves shimmer in the moonlight like small, soft mirrors. One fig has fallen split slightly from its landing. A beetle inspects it, patient without fear. You nod at it as you pass. It does not nod back. That's fair. The path curves into a small sunken garden, a place you hadn't noticed before. Its entrance is hidden behind 2 low-hanging vines like curtains in a dream. You brush them aside and step down. It's quieter here. The ground is soft with moss, and the walls that surround the space are lined with niches, alcoves holding items, artifacts, remnants of lives lived and gently set aside. A brass comb, a cracked teacup, a spool of blue thread, a clay pipe unlit but still fragrant. You stop at each one not to examine but to witness. This place doesn't ask for understanding, just presence. And in the largest niche, centered at the far end of the garden, sits a small stool and a book. Open, waiting. You approach. It's my Tazni. Its pages are blank save for a single line handwritten across the top of each one. In different handwriting, different ink, different centuries maybe, trees. You read a few, she forgave him and the tree kept growing. I lost the ring but kept the vow. He never said goodbye but I remember the smell of his soap. These aren't theories. They're truths, lived ones. You find an empty line and do nothing with it. That too is a kind of contribution. You leave the book open as you found it and sit on the stool. It creaks under your weight, not in protest, but in recognition, like it's saying, ah, you, ah. From somewhere beyond the walls, a breeze enters the space. It brings with it a sound you can't place at first. Not water, not wind. Something finer. Then you realize it's the sound of bamboo wind chimes. High, hollow notes that rise and fall without pattern. Soft as breath. Unfinished. Perfect. You sit and listen. After a while, you lean forward and pick up the spool of thread from the nearby niche. It unravels easily. You run your fingers along it and find something tied near the end, a bead made of rose quartz, smooth and faintly warm. It catches the moonlight and glows like the inside of a secret. You tie the thread back into a loose knot, return it to its place, and stand. The garden releases you gently. No push, no pull. Just the feeling of a story being told and retold through every breeze and branch. You walk back up the path, re-entering the open air. Ahead, you find a clearing lit by moonlight and framed by 4 date palms. They stand in perfect asymmetry, balanced, but never mirrored. In the center, a stone platform slightly raised almost like a stage. On it, nothing. No structure. No statue. Just space. You climb onto it and lie down. The stone is warm as if storing sunlight from a week ago. Above you, stars blink slowly, each one more still than the last. You feel your breath align with them, inhale by inhale. This is the Gardens of Pause, its intermission. And into it steps a nightingale. You don't see it, you hear it. It lands on a branch nearby and begins to sing, not in melody, in layers. Some notes high, others bird and low. Some sharp. Some just vibrations of air pretending to be sound. It sings like it's arguing with fate and laughing at its own courage. Historians still argue whether Persian poets wrote for nightingales or simply listened. Some claim the birds were metaphors. Others insist they were muses with feathers. You don't care. You're just grateful to hear it. The nightingale pauses between phrases as if expecting your reply. You offer none. But in your silence, something shifts. The bird continues, a duet with the dark, a song with no chorus, a kind of joy that isn't loud. You close your eyes. Let the stone hold you. Let the sky watch you. Let the song do what it came to do. The nightingale song fades, not because it ends, but because you've started hearing other things more clearly. The sound of your own breathing, even and slow. The whisper of wind slipping through date palms, the occasional creak of wood in the distance, like the garden itself is stretching in its sleep. You remain on the stone platform a while longer, staring upward. The stars above now seem familiar. You've seen them before, but not like this. They are less about direction, more about reflection. Constellations don't guide you here. They witness you. Eventually, you rise and continue walking. The gravel path beneath you reappears, bordered this time by low walls of fired clay, reddish and porous. They're uneven, clearly handmade, perhaps by gardeners who believed even walls should breathe. Ahead, you notice something unusual, a feast. Or rather, the suggestion of one. A long, low stone table set beneath a trellis with wide ceramic dishes still dusted in spice. There are bowls of dried fruit, small piles of cracked walnut shells, the faint scent of coriander and cinnamon clinging to the air. But no people. No candles lit, no utensils set, no sound of conversation, just the garden. You pause. It feels neither abandoned nor forgotten. It feels offered. You sit on one of the cushions scattered along the table's edge. It exhales slightly under your weight. You pour yourself a small cup of water from the glazed pitcher beside you. It's still cool. Somewhere the kanat is doing its job. You sip, the taste is familiar now, stone copper time. You pick up a dried apricot and break it in half. Inside, the scent rushes out a sticky, warm perfume of summer gone quiet. You eat only one half and place the other gently back on the plate. It's not sauce. Meal. It's ritual. The Stoics were never against pleasure. They simply asked that pleasure not own you. And here where figs are sliced, but untouched, and water is poured but never wasted, you understand satisfaction does not require indulgence. A breeze moves through the trellis. Above you, vines shift. A few petals fall onto the table like nature's own seasoning. You let them be. You sit quietly and let your thoughts meander, not race, not spiral, just wander. And in this wandering, something surfaces, a memory of a time when you rushed, when you were too loud, too fast, too sharp around the edges. You smile, not out of shame, but out of recognition. Even that version of you would have been welcomed here. You rise from the table and walk again. The garden narrows into a passage flanked by tall hedges, trimmed in uneven lines, not sloppy, just unconcerned with symmetry. It's like the garden is shrugging softly. Perfection, meh. At the end of the passage, a round doorway appears just tall enough for you to pass through if you bow slightly. You do. Inside, you find a circular room open to the stars. No roof, no windows, just curved walls and the night. In the center, a wide, shallow basin of water. No ripples, no movement. You approach it. This basin reflects everything. Not just your face, but the curve of the sky, the outline of the hedges behind you. The glimmer of a spider's web stretched across a vine above. You kneel beside it, tempted to touch, but you don't. Instead, you speak softly, not to hear your voice, but to hear your silence afterward. Thank you. The water doesn't answer, but it listens. You stay beside the basin for several minutes, eyes open, then closed, then open again. Your breath begins to follow a pattern in for 4, out for 6, or maybe 7. You've stopped counting. The Stoics believe that stillness came not from removing yourself from life, but from participating in it wisely. And here you are participating in quiet, in reflection, in not needing more. Eventually you stand. The path continues through a narrow stone corridor lit only by moonlight. At intervals, lanterns hang unlit, unnecessary in the soft light. Their glass sides are clouded with dust, but you see shapes drawn on them. Little etched parables, a bird perched on a jug, a tortoise under a fig tree, a hand releasing a leaf. You remember the Stoic idea of sympathesia, the interconnectedness of all things. These drawings were never meant to be understood individually. They're fragments of a larger story. You continue walking, and just when you begin to feel the garden's rhythm deepen again, you hear something unexpected, a soft rhythmic tap, tap, pause, tap, pause. You round a corner and find an elderly man sitting beneath a pomegranate tree using a wooden stick to gently knock fallen fruit from the branches. He sees you and smiles, doesn't speak. You nod. He continues his work, tapping once, then pausing, listening, then another tap. It's less harvesting and more conversation, between man and tree, between present and enough. You sit on a low wall nearby watching. One fruit falls. He catches it gently, inspects it, and places it in a basket. Some are ready, he finally says. Some fall too early, some stay too long. You nod again. That's all he offers, and all you need. You leave quietly, his tapping continuing behind you like a slow heartbeat. And somewhere in the garden, the water flows still. You walk away from the old man's gentle rhythm, but the sound of his tapping seems to follow you, echoing in your bones, slow and steady like a heartbeat that has nothing to prove. The path dips slightly. You step down onto softer ground now, not gravel, not stone, but packed earth scattered with petals and pine needles. You smell cedar and something else. As you reach the next turn, the light changes. It's not darker, but dimmer, thicker. Like dusk has temporarily taken up residence here. The plants lean in more closely, the air grows still, and every sound becomes more intimate. This is the garden sleeping. Leaves close, flowers furl back into their stems. You've arrived at that hour when even the insects start to whisper. You notice a vine-covered alcove off to your right, barely visible except for the way the moonlight chooses to land on it. You follow the invitation. Inside, a cluster of plants grow in what looks like slow choreography. Their arrangement isn't ornamental, it's instinctual. Some stretch toward the moon, others lean into each other, tangled in shared silence. No fence, no trellis, just gravity and trust. You crouch down beside a bloom you don't recognize. It's pale blue, nearly translucent, and its petals tremble slightly even without wind. You don't touch it, you simply mirror it, still, aware, fragile without apology. You sit back onto the low mossy edge of the alcove. The moss gives, but not too much. Like a friend who listens but doesn't interrupt. This moment reminds you of something Seneca once wrote, as is a tale. So is life, not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. You think about that bloom. It might not last till morning, but for now, it's perfect. You stand and rejoin the path which now leads you beside a long clay wall, its surface flaking in wide swaths like shedding bark. Someone has scratched markings into the surface, a few shapes, lines, maybe initials. Human instinct, you think. Leave a trace. Even when you know time will erase it. At the end of the wall, you come upon a doorless gateway framed by two tall olive trees. Their trunks twist like stories told too many times. You walk between them and enter a courtyard entirely made of silence. It's not empty, far from it. At the center, a large tree acacia perhaps rises alone from a circular island of polished stone. Its branches spread wide, not high, its shadow is more generous than its leaves. Around it, 6 stone stools evenly spaced facing inward. You approach, choose one, and sit. The garden breathes around you. No one joins you, and yet you feel surrounded. You think of people you've lost, people you've left, people you've never met but have carried inside your choices. For a moment, you let yourself imagine them on the stools beside you. They don't speak. They don't need to. Even the imagined know how to listen here. You close your eyes, and for a time your mind becomes the 7th seat in the circle. Historians still argue whether Persian gardens were meant to be symbolic heavens or practical sanctuaries. You think maybe they're neither. Maybe they're rehearsals for being alive without needing to be busy. You open your eyes and find a feather resting at your feet. Long, soft white at the base, dark at the tip. You don't know what bird it came from or if it was placed here, but it feels like punctuation. You carry it with you as you leave the courtyard, not as a souvenir, as a thread. The garden narrows once more, this time into a winding passage of curved brick walls. Their tops are uneven and vines spill over in places like hair falling over a shoulder. You walk slowly, one hand tracing the wall, the feather tucked lightly behind your ear. You emerge into a small chamber, no sky visible, just a circular roof open to the stars in a single dot. The walls are lined with niches holding tiny clay jars, each sealed with wax. One jar sits open, inside a slip of folded parchment. You open it carefully. It reads, "Forgiveness is something the garden never had to learn. It simply continues." You place the parchment back where you found it. That message wasn't just meant for you, it was meant for whoever needs it next. You sit in the middle of the chamber. The feather brushes your cheek. You close your eyes. A sound begins, a deep, soft thrum. It's not wind, it's not water. It's garland is sun. The kanat flowing somewhere beneath, closer now. It sounds like breath, like blood, like the first sound you ever heard in the womb. And just as you start to wonder if the garden is asleep or if you are a petal lands on your knee, pale pink, no tree above. You laugh softly, of course. You remain seated for a while, letting the chamber hold you like the inside of a shell. The echo of the kanat, the subterranean breath of the garden, moves through the stone, not loud but undeniable. It doesn't ask for attention, it just is. Eventually, you rise. You walk without hurry, your footsteps tracing soft arcs along the curved path. It feels less like you're choosing a direction and more like the garden is tilting slightly, nudging you gently where it wants you next. The air is cooler now, not cold, just deeper, more distilled. Every scent is clearer, every texture sharper. You notice the difference in gravel, some fine like powder, some like tiny teeth underfoot. Even the quiet here has texture, so. You come to another opening, not walled off, not marked. Just a break in the hedges where moonlight pours in like milk. You follow. Here the space is wider, flatter, moon-washed. A square platform in the center made of polished limestone gleams faintly like it's remembering the sun. This is a place for watching. You climb onto the platform and sit cross-legged, your back straight without trying. You're no longer holding posture. The posture is holding you. In front of you, a shallow pond. Its edges are uneven, the stone lip is chipped in places. One side is slightly higher than the other. Water seeps over gently and falls into the soil, feeding plants you can't see. This imperfection makes the reflection more beautiful. The moon looks like it's leaning. You watch it ripple slightly. A breeze arrives, not strong but assertive. It slips over the pond and ruffles the water like a hand over silk. The moon fractures, reforms, fractures again. You're reminded of a teaching from Cleanthes, one of Zeno's students. "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O destiny, to the goal I am appointed." The breeze leads the water follows, the reflection survives. You lie down on the stone and let your arms spread wide. You don't feel small, you feel fitted, as though you've clicked into the night like the final tile in a mosaic. Then a sound, soft, unusual. You sit up and look toward the far edge of the clearing. A figure is seated on a mat woven from reeds, facing away from you, slowly grinding something with a stone mortar. You don't approach. Instead, you watch. The movement is rhythmic, steady. The grinding isn't hurried nor delayed, it is ceremony disguised as habit. After a few minutes, the figure, slim cloaked in linen, no age you can guess, pauses, wipes their hands, and pours water over the mixture. Steam rises. You smell cardamom, then rose, then something citrusy, a kind of tea, you guess, but made like prayer. The figure doesn't look at you, but somehow you feel invited. You walk over, quietly. They extend a small clay cup without turning. You take it. It's warm, smoother than your breath. It tastes like the garden itself, distilled, floral, earthy, bittersweet. You sit beside them, no words exchanged. That's the agreement here, presence, not performance. You drink. The figure finishes their preparation, sets their tools aside, and stands. You nod in thanks. They nod once and walk into the trees. You finish the tea. It leaves a trace of honey at the back of your throat and something darker behind that, like a forgotten spice waking up again. You stay seated for a while. The ground beneath you is warm. The cup in your hands cools slowly. You think about the idea of euthymia, a Stoic word rarely quoted but profoundly lived. It means being on your own path, undistracted by the chaos of others. Not isolation, not arrogance, just quiet alignment. You're not escaping anything here. You're returning. You stand and walk back to the pond. The moon is gone from its surface, now tucked behind a cloud. You don't wait for it to return. Instead, you bow slightly, not out of duty, but out of rhythm. And the pond naturally does nothing. You step off the platform and follow a small lantern-lit trail, a string of lights, not flame-lit, but moon-caught. Each lantern has a small glass mirror inside, angled upward. They don't shine. They reflect. As you pass, your own face appears briefly distorted and reshaped in each one. Sad, smiling, tired, young, timeless. You do not stop to analyze, you simply pass. And then the sound of trickling again. You're near water. The trail ends at a long channel bordered by low stone walls. Water runs through it in ribbons, thin and steady. At the far end, a single pipe releases a slow stream into a copper bowl. It overflows, but not wastefully. The water runs into a narrow groove in the earth where it disappears. You crouch beside this bowl and touch the surface. It's warm, like it has absorbed every poem ever whispered into its copper skin. This bowl does not ask who drinks. It does not care who listens. It just pours. You sit beside it, rest your head against the stone, close your eyes. And for a moment, the bowl, the stars, the wind, the memory of that tea, all of it is you. You remain by the copper bowl a little longer, lulled by the rhythmic plink, plink of water dropping into water. It doesn't change, it doesn't hurry. You begin to wonder if this bowl has ever overflowed or if it just always gives at the same pace it receives. You run your fingers along the groove carved into the stone where the water escapes, noticing how it leads into a garden bed where roots quietly drink. What pours from one place nourishes another. The Stoics would approve. Giving without dramatics, receiving without grasping. You stand and follow the groove downstream. It disappears briefly under a flagstone, then reemerges farther down, flanked by clusters of chamomile and sage, their silver-green leaves flickering in the moonlight. The air here smells like stories, old ones. Ahead, a tree comes into view, short, wide, with dark, waxy leaves and tiny white blossoms clinging to its underside. Beneath it, someone has left a stool carved from a single block of stone. You sit. The blossoms give off a scent like lemon and honey blended with dust. Not sharp, not sweet, just real. You close your eyes. For a while, the garden seems to recede, the sounds drift, the air wraps itself around you like a thought you don't need to finish. And then you hear a voice. Not near, not loud, not even clearly spoken. It's the tone of someone humming a tune they don't want to forget. You look up and there, just across the garden bed, you see her. A girl, maybe 12, maybe 15. The same one from earlier or not. She's bent over a patch of soil, her hands deep in the earth, pulling out weeds with slow, deliberate care. She doesn't glance your way. You watch her silently. The way she handles the roots, not yanking but loosening, coaxing. She pauses every so often, not from exhaustion but from thought. Like each weed removed gives her a moment of reflection. That's why my sus. Not to you, to the soil. Not your fault, she says softly, placing a particularly stubborn weed in her basket. You were just growing where there was room. She continues, but the roses need more light. She says it with affection, not reprimand. You think again of Stoic thought, how it's often misunderstood as harsh, when really it's just honest. Clear, not cruel. To remove a weed isn't to hate it, it's to love what surrounds it. The girl finishes her work, wipes her hands on her tunic, and walks away without noticing you. Maybe she did, and that was enough. You stay seated, eyes on the disturbed soil, the faint scent of earth rising. You whisper barely audible thank you. It's unclear whether you're addressing her, the soil, or yourself. You stand again and continue on. A soft rustle of reeds greets you at the next turn, where a small pond, more a shallow basin, really sits nestled among tall grasses. Fireflies blink lazily above it, their light never synchronized, always accidental. You crouch beside the water and see them reflected dancing lights both above and below. This is where the garden breathes with open lungs. You lie back on a stone slab nearby. It's been used before, smoothed at the edges, indented slightly in the middle. The kind of stone you only find in places where people have rested for generations. Overhead the reeds sway, a star winks. And story begins. Not aloud, just within you. You remember a time you lost something important, not a thing, an idea, a hope, a direction. And you realize now that it didn't vanish. It was planted. It needed time. And this moment, this night, this breath is what it was waiting for. You remember the feather behind your ear. You remove it gently and let it rest on the stone beside you. There's nothing to carry anymore. The Stoics believed in oikiosis, the process of growing into yourself, of becoming at home in the world. Not arriving fully formed, but aligning over time. And here beneath reeds and stars and the slow, invisible flow of water, you realize you are no longer arriving. You are here. You stand, brush your hands off, and walk back toward the path. The feather stays behind. It doesn't need a pocket, just the wind. The garden leads you toward a gate now, not an end, but a threshold. It's simple. Wooden, slightly open, no latch, no lock. You pause before stepping through. Behind you, the lights of the fireflies still blink. Ahead, more darkness, a softer quiet. You step through. You're not leaving. You're carrying something forward. Beyond the gate, the path feels different, softer, darker, and quieter still. Not abandoned, just deeper. Like you've stepped not just into another part of the garden, but another layer of it. A more secret one. One that doesn't introduce itself. The gravel here is finer, mixed with ash-gray sand that doesn't crunch but whispers underfoot. The air is warmer again, but not heavy. It carries with it a scent so faint you can't name it. Something like baked stone, an old parchment with just a trace of jasmine. Maybe memory has a smell. You walk carefully, not out of fear, but because this part of the garden feels like it has ears. To your right, a low wall runs along the path. It's covered in tiles, not decorative, but worn, each etched with markings and smoothed by time. Some resemble constellations, others seem random. And yet your fingers move along them instinctively, like reading a language your body remembers better than your mind. At one spot, your hand lingers. A tile is cracked in half, its break, filled with gold resin. The seam is precise, deliberate. It doesn't try to hide the break, it displays it. You smile, another nod to imperfection as design. Kintsugi, you think again, but Persian, Stoic. In this garden, broken doesn't mean failed, it means seen. You leave the wall and continue until the path opens into a space shaped like an oval, sunken, slightly ringed with olive trees so old their trunks look more root than wood. In the center sits a simple dome, not a building, not a temple. Just a roof held up by 4 wooden pillars, each etched with calligraphy. You approach, duck slightly, and step beneath. Inside, the floor is covered in rugs, threadbare in places, sun-faded in others, but clean. Cared for. As if someone regularly sits here to speak with silence. You do the same. Your body folds easily now, legs crossed, back straight, shoulders soft. Above you, the open dome frames the moon perfectly, no clouds, just its pale face watching you watch it. A breeze moves through the dome's open sides, gentle as silk. In the center of the rug lies a stone bowl filled with dried flowers, rose, saffron, lavender. Maybe some crushed marigold. They don't smell strong anymore, but they remember. You lean forward and run your fingers through the petals. They rustle like paper, like dried laughter. You sit back and close your eyes, and you begin to hear it. The garden's rhythm, not a sound, a pattern, a sense. Beneath everything, beneath you, beneath the rugs, beneath the roots, water still flows. Not fast, not loud, but constant. The Kanat ancient and invisible moves as it always has, downhill, uphill, through silence, through time. The Stoics believed the universe had a logos, a reasoned order, a harmony that underpinned even the most chaotic surface. Here that logos feels audible, like a hum from behind the curtain of matter. You open your eyes and look again at the petals. One has moved caught by the breeze. You don't touch it. You've stopped needing to correct what the wind chooses. You rise and step out from under the dome. Outside, the olive trees seem to stand taller now, their shadows longer, the stars between their branches sharper. You hear a faint creak, a sound of something old adjusting slightly. Not breaking, just loosening. You walk on. Another gate appears ahead. This one made not of wood but iron, delicate, almost vine-like in its design. It stands slightly ajar, no hinge in sight. You pass through. On the other side, sand. A courtyard circular and bare except for a single raked pattern that spirals outward from the center, like the ribs of a seashell. You step carefully, not disturbing the lines. In the middle, a small ceramic bowl filled with salt rests on a pedestal. Why salt? You approach. There's no note, no explanation. But as you dip your fingers in, you understand. It's there to remind you of what remains after the tide, after the feast, after the tears. Salt, the essence of what's been through fire, through water, through life. You press a bit between your fingers, it crumbles softly. You do not taste it. Some truths are meant to be felt, not consumed. Historians still argue whether salt in gardens was symbolic of preservation, purification, or something more practical. But here it feels like punctuation. It was like a final consonant after a soft sentence. You leave the bowl and continue on. The path narrows once again, bordered now by low sagebrush and rosemary. Their scent clings to your legs as you pass bright, clean, but slightly bitter. A reminder not everything in the garden is sweet. The Stoics would smile at that. Memento mori, they'd whisper. Remember that even beauty has thorns. You reach a final resting spot, a bench carved from black basalt, placed at the edge of a small stream. Here the water speaks more clearly. It rushes but gently, like a storyteller nearing the end. You sit. Your feet touch cool earth. The moon has begun its descent. You inhale once, exhale slowly, and the garden breathes with you. You stay on the basalt bench a while, your hands resting open on your lap, as if ready to receive not objects, not answers, but stillness. Across the stream, the path disappears into shadow, and for the first time tonight, you feel a kind of closing. Not an end, but a gesture toward it. Like the garden is beginning to tuck you in. The water beside you moves steadily now, faster than in other places, but still respectful. You watch it wrap around smooth stones, weave between reeds, and carry stray petals like thoughts drifting without effort. Some petals sink, some float. None fight. You remember something Epictetus said, "Don't seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." This stream doesn't resist its course. It becomes it. You follow the stream on foot, walking beside it as the path curves gently left, then right, then left again. Each turn seems to align with your own breath, a pattern but not a prison. Then light, a faint amber glow ahead. You quicken slightly, not out of urgency but anticipation. A final page waiting to be read. You arrive at a grove lit by 4 lanterns, one in each corner resting on stone plinths. Their glow is soft, flickering with shadows of nearby leaves. In the center of the grove is a pool perfectly round, still and dark as obsidian. And beside it, the gardener. The one you saw earlier, the one with the candle. He's older than you remember. Or maybe the night has aged you both together. He kneels at the edge of the pool, placing small white stones into the water, one at a time. Each stone makes a sound no louder than a sigh. Plink. You watch silently. After the 5th stone, he speaks without turning. Most things settle given enough time. His voice is not wise, it is worn. You approach and kneel opposite him. He nods to a small pile of stones. You take one, hold it for a moment, and place it gently into the water. Plink. The ripples meet his, they merge, fade. You both sit for a while longer. No more words are needed, not here, not now. Eventually he rises, places his hands behind his back and walks away without farewell. You remain by the pool. You look into it not to see yourself, but to see what the water remembers. A leaf drifts across its surface. The moon wavers. A single frog croaks in the distance once. You smile. You rise and continue. Ahead, the path begins to rise just slightly. You ascend a gentle hill lined with olive trees, their gnarled trunks glowing faintly in lantern light. The wind hums low like the final note of a lullaby drawn out until it vanishes. At the top of the hill, you find one last bench, this one carved not from stone, but from aged wood, smooth and hollowed by years of quiet sitting. You sit and look down. Below you, the entire garden lies in shadow and moonlight. Pools shimmer like eyes barely open. Cypress trees stand like unspoken thoughts. Pathways snake gently through courtyards and corridors, all leading always back to this view. This is the perspective the Stoics always try to teach. Not detachment, elevation, clarity, a wide view that holds all things gently. You look at your hands. The lines on your palms seem older, truer. You breathe in long and slow, and when you breathe out, the garden exhales with you. A breeze moves up the hill. It wraps around your shoulders like a shawl you didn't know you needed. You whisper a single word, not to the sky, not to the trees, not even to yourself. Just out. Enough. And Garden agrees. You sit a while longer, the wooden bench creaking faintly beneath you as if it too has finally relaxed. Then behind you, a small stone arch marks the garden's farthest edge. You walk toward it, your steps slower than before, not because of weight, but because you're carrying less. Through the arch, the land beyond waits, unseen, unknown, but not unwelcome. The wind follows you through, and the water flows behind. Beyond the stone arch, the path dissolves into a wide stretch of polished marble warmed from within as if the garden placed this last stone with its own hands. There are no more trees here, no more gates, just open space and sky. You stand in the center. Above you, the stars remain, familiar now, not a map, not a destination, just presence. The moon, lower than before, casts your shadow at an angle that feels like a bow. You do not kneel, but your spirit bends slightly, not from burden, but from gratitude. Ahead, a shallow platform of soft stone invites you. You walk toward it slowly, your steps soundless on the marble. At the platform's edge lies a linen mat folded neatly in thirds next to a shallow ceramic bowl filled with warm water. You kneel, wash your hands, not to clean, to mark the moment. The mat unfolds with a whisper. You lie down on it, the stone beneath, softened by centuries of rest. The scent of crushed thyme and warm linen rises gently. The sky above shifts into deeper indigo. You are not in a garden now. You are in the breath between gardens. A breeze passes once, twice. You pull your shawl closer, or maybe the night pulls itself over you. There is nothing left to explore, and still nothing feels missing. The Kanat still flows beneath. You feel it now as a hum against your back, like a heartbeat you've known forever. You imagine the gardener lighting his candle again, the girl whispering to the soil, the old man tapping fruit from the branches, the cat stretching in silence beneath the bench. All still there, all still tending, because the garden never closes. It simply sleeps when you do. Almost. One last thought arrives, but it doesn't ask for attention. It simply nods and sits beside you, cross-legged and patient. You exhale. The sky holds your breath. The earth holds your body. The water holds your story. You close your eyes, and the garden listens. The marble beneath you begins to cool just a little, not unpleasantly, just enough to remind you that the night is deepening. The kind of deep that doesn't require decision, that welcomes surrender. The breeze softens. Its edges round off like syllables fading mid-sentence. Somewhere a fig falls. Somewhere a rose closes. You feel the weight of your limbs sink into the mat, not with heaviness, but with agreement. You are not being held, you are being met. The water beneath still moves, the roots still drink, the stars still turn quiet and unconcerned. All without you needing to help. That's the secret, that you are not the gardener here. You are the soil, softened by time, shaped by care, ready to rest. And this story, like the petals pressed into the walls, will remain. Even when your eyes have closed, even when your thoughts go silent, even when sleep gently carries you beyond the gates. You've walked the garden, listened to the Kanat, sat with the birds, the stones, the silence. And now all that's left is to let it hold you. No action, no resistance, just ease, and a whisper, still waters, Still mind. Still. End of script. Sweet dreams.